Ever have one of those rounds where you die without using any of your abilities? Or maybe you used all of your abilities to take the bomb site, only to have nothing left to hold the post-plant retake, while the enemy team still has 4 flashes, 3 smokes, grenades, Silva Dart. I think you get the point. If you want to learn how to avoid these situations to maximize your ability's impact on a round, this video is for you. What is going on, ProGuides family? It is your host, Sergeant Frost, and today I'm going to be giving you guys some tips on how to maximize your agent's ability potential. Now, the goal here is to not give you agent-specific tips, but a general guideline to help you get the most impact from your abilities in any given situation. Of course, we'll tie this in with some agent examples, but the main focus here is to critically think about how and when you should throw that grenade or put down that smoke. So let's dive in. Before being able to use your abilities at a high level, you gotta know what they do. Pretty simple, right? Well, hear me out. There's levels to this one. On one level, understanding how utility works is generally straightforward. A flash blinds an enemy, a smoke blocks vision, a grenade or Molotov deals damage and clears an area, and a drone lets you safely gain information. If you're relatively new to Valorant or the tactical FPS genre and need help with this, don't worry. You can always test your abilities out in a custom server to get the general idea of how they function. You don't need specific details like the exact radius or trajectory of a brimstone molly, but if you're finding that you often misjudge the placement of smokes or mollies, then it might be a good idea to revisit them in a practice server. Nothing stings more than mollying a choke point only to find out someone was able to peek around it. So make sure you know what your abilities do. On another level, understanding your abilities isn't just knowing how they work or how they interact with the map, but also knowing the options to work with or around them. Throwing a flash allows you to clear an angle that an enemy may be holding or give you the chance to fight your way out of a tight spot. A Cypher's tripwire lets you defend an area with multiple entryways, without having to constantly be scared of a lurker sneaking up behind you. Be aware of your abilities' strengths and weaknesses. For example, although tripwires are useful for providing information on incoming enemies, people can jump over your trips if you place them too low, or crouch under them if you place them too high. Also, jet can dash through your tripwires. Silva's shock darts also break them, and people can just shoot them out. So you can't place them in areas that are too predictable. Another example, people can turn around from Phoenix's flash if you throw them too wide. And they also know where you're peeking from because Phoenix can't throw his flash very far. Also, the flash duration is not as long as Sky's flash or Breach flash, so you won't have as much time to capitalize on it. Typically, understanding agent interactions with your abilities and how you interact with your abilities comes as a result of trial and error as you play the game, as well as becoming comfortable with the agent you're playing. As you naturally improve as a player, you'll start to know your agent's abilities like the back of your hand. Yet on another level, there's even more to understanding abilities than just knowing its strengths and weaknesses, but that'll be for another time. If you have a solid grasp on what I've just covered, then you're able to at least be aware of what's happening when you play. But don't get comfortable just yet. This is just the tip of the iceberg. Tactical FPS games have endless possibilities, and other topics like ability combos, mind games, and map pressure all factor into how you'll come to understand your agent's abilities in the future. The sky is the limit. Not that sky, but you know. If you guys want a more in-depth guide on understanding utility, let us know in the comment section down below. Also, this is the perfect time for our question of the day. Today's question is, which agent ability do you feel you have the most impact with? What are some cool plays that you like to make with that ability? Let us know in the comment section down below. One of the biggest things that separate great players from just good players is that great players always know what they want out of a situation. This applies to many other aspects of the game, such as peeking corners, supporting teammates, and being an in-game leader. After understanding the strengths and weaknesses of your abilities, it is absolutely crucial for you to know what you want to achieve with them. Sure, you know that a flash can blind an enemy, but if you throw a flash that blinded someone, yet you can't capitalize on that moment of weakness, then what was the purpose of using that flash? Similarly, if you threw a Molotov in a corner and cleared an area out but you didn't take control, did you actually clear that angle? For all you know, maybe someone can walk right back into that corner after the molly ends. In these situations, you used your utility with their strengths in mind, but you achieved very little out of it. So what's the play? You need to know what you want out of your ability. If you're playing Jet, you more than likely will know to use your dash after you take a risky duel. Ask yourself, why would I dash? The answer is relatively simple here: to avoid being punished by the enemy's teammates coming to trade. Although simple, this kind of thought process is necessary for every ability that you use. What do I want to use this ability for and why? Only when you have an idea of what you're trying to achieve will you be able to evaluate your decisions and improve on your ability usage. For example, let's go through this thought process. Is my goal to take C-side on Haven? Yes. Does one Phoenix flash give me enough space to push C long? Probably not. Do I feel safe entering C site like this? Not really. So in this situation, you either need to reevaluate your goals and maybe try to find a different way to take C site, or you could ask your teammates for their abilities to support you as you fight your way in. But if your goal was to simply create some pressure and force the C long player off the angle so your Albrecht can hold it for the repeak, then that flash is useful and can probably net your teammate an easy kill on an over-aggressive defender. So, how do you consistently make these kind of plays happen? There are a few ways. One of them is to hit up our website ProGuides.com, where our Radiant level coaches will be more than happy to assist you with tips and tricks on how and when to use your abilities. Additionally, we have pros like Tens and Psalm who have partnered with us to release Valorant courses that you guys can watch to understand the gameplay fundamentals and pro mindset to take your game to the next level. One of the best ways to become a high-level player is to learn from high-level players themselves. So make sure you don't miss out on this opportunity to learn from the best on ProGuides. But the other way that will help you naturally find success with your abilities and to create plays is to have a game plan in mind to position and use your abilities accordingly. If you know what you want to achieve with your utility, then the next step is to create that game plan. This could be an IGL telling his team how he wants them to take a site, or you as an individual player mapping out the control you want to take depending on your ability strengths, or just your game plan on how you want to find that opening pick. Having a good idea of what you need to do for your team not only helps tremendously in growing your knowledge of what abilities you need to use, but also helps you place yourself in the proper positions to use them effectively. If you're a Brimstone and your IGL tells you that he needs 2 smokes to take B side on Haven, then it would be a bad idea to use 2 smokes while trying to create pressure in Garage. However, that does mean that you have 1 smoke that you can use for something else. Additionally, let's just say you realize in a post-plant situation, your Molotov is very strong for playing the objective. Knowing that, you would also save your molly unless there is a very compelling reason to use it early, such as hearing their whole team running through A on an eco rush. In that situation, you might decide you want to use your utility to prevent them from pushing through the flank, as your team runs into B side to set up post-plant positions. Obviously, either decision is good as long as you can find a decent justification for it. Also, you can still choose to save that molly and smoke off the flank instead, or perhaps stim beacon and fight them with your teammates as they round the corner. Whatever the decision is, making sure you use your abilities with the situation in mind is always the best course of action for learning what's right and what's wrong. Maybe you threw down a smoke and they ran through and destroyed you still. You might consider the molly to be more useful in that spot next time. Regardless, playing accordingly based on what utility you have is key to finding consistent success with maximizing your ability's impact. But some may ask, what should I do? Should I use the molly now or later? This question is hard to answer and leads us to an insight on how to approach tactical FPS games. Because Valorant is not a solved game and there is no objectively correct answer yet, most decision making is up to logic, your personal experiences, intuition, and your team's collective decision. However, due to the nature of the game being much more variant than traditional strategy games, due to its faster pace and focus on team play and gunplay mechanics, most players don't make a big connection between efficient resource management and winning. In most cases, what gets highlighted more is the flashy plays and crazy aim. Granted, flashy plays and insane mechanical aim does play a very large role in finding consistent success, but if you watch any pro player carefully, you'll find that there is rarely a wasted ability or a half-hearted play. Behind every decision or flashy play is a deep understanding of game sense and efficiency, and countless hours of perfecting their agent's abilities added with some insane raw aim and skill. So if you want to play like the pros, your goal as a player is to try to maximize the impact of every decision you make, and that includes your abilities. Because you only have limited uses in a round, using your abilities is like depleting a resource in return for something else, such as information, map control, a kill, etc. To give yourself the best chance at winning a round, you need to know what your win conditions are and how to use your resources adequately to reach that condition. Once you've started to critically think about how your abilities should be used and when to use them, you'll finally be able to optimize for your role on a team. This means taking your game plan and finding the best way to do so with your abilities. In some ways, this includes knowing the right timing to throw your flash, or keeping track of where your enemy might be playing. Understanding the situations surrounding your game plan will always help you in finding the right course of action for getting the maximum value. Now, it's hard to find specific examples for Valorant, as the replay system is not supported yet. However, we can pull from CSGO, where the metagame is much more well defined on what utility is important, if not necessary, especially for certain areas of map control. If you watch a pro point of view of different teams playing in certain positions, you'll notice that every pro has a slightly different but consistent utility routine that they use throughout the round to gain or maintain control. To a normal viewer, this might seem basic, but it really isn't. The reason pros consistently use similar utility in any given round is due to the player understanding their role on their team. By understanding his role in the game plan, he has crafted an efficient way of contributing to the said game plan. Although the lineups and plays themselves aren't exceptionally complex, the planning that was made beforehand to simplify the round to that extent is often overlooked. As a disclaimer, there are obviously other benefits to using the same utility every round, such as mind games and baseline information denial. However, those are more advanced concepts that we can cover in another video. The point still stands that once you determine what your game plan is, it's time to test it out in-game to find what combination provides you the most space and safest entry. I could ramble about this all day, but I think this part is where you as a player have to do most of the heavy lifting. Evaluating your ability management is a key factor in becoming more aware of how you impact the round and what your potential is in each situation. Of course, this doesn't mean you can ignore everything else like mechanics and communication, but knowing when and how you use your agent's abilities will do you a lot of favors as you climb the ranks and become a more well-rounded player. Well, that's a wrap for our video today, and I hope these tips helped you with understanding the utility side of Valorant. If you liked the video, make sure to give it a thumbs up. And if you want to keep up to date with the latest Valorant news, updates, and guides, make sure you subscribe and hit that bell notification icon. Also, let us know if you want to see more of these types of videos in the comments section down below. This has been your host, Sergeant Frost, as always, and good luck on the grind.